Dear students, welcome to this audio lecture. The topic that I shall be doing today is the English poem Fire and Ice, written by the popular American poet of 20th century, Robert Frost. Written and published in the year 1920, shortly after the First World War, Fire and Ice is a bleak poem highlighting the theme of the destruction or end of the world. This 9-line poem is written in a very simple and easy language and has a conversational tone in it. The poem Fire and Ice is a symbolic poem, as the very title juxtaposes two contrasting symbols, that is fire and ice. Now, what does the two symbols fire and ice stand for in this poem? Let us try to understand. Students, before we read the text of the poem Fire and Ice, I have a very simple activity or an exercise for you. In your notebooks, kindly make two columns, and on top of one column write down the word fire, and on top of the other column write the word ice. Now think of few words that can be related to or somehow associated with the words fire and ice, and write them down in two separate columns in your notebooks. Students, I'm sure that you have come up with few words that can be associated with fire, such as heat, flame, burn, death, and so on. And as far as the word ice is concerned, you might have written words like cold, freeze, chilled, death. Now, students, have you noticed something? That in both the columns there is a repetition of the word death. The main objective of this particular exercise was to make you realize that in excess of both these natural elements, fire and ice, may lead to similar kind of consequences. Students, this particular activity is connected with the main theme of the poem, Fire and Ice. Let us try to read the text of the poem now. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. So this is a very simple poem. It has got just 9 lines, a very short poem. It has a particular rhythmic, pattern in it. We shall try to understand the literary devices or the figures of speech used in this poem in a while. First of all, let us try to understand what is the theme of the poem. What exactly is the writer trying to communicate through this poem, Fire and Ice? In this poem, Fire and Ice by Robert Frost, the poet weighs up two different scenarios, two different possibilities for the end of the world. Fire and ice being the possible causes for this end. The poet uses the natural elements, fire and ice, as symbols for desire and hatred respectively. Thus, the symbol of fire and ice are used to show how desire and hatred contribute to making the world stand at the verge of chaos. Robert Frost argues that both the emotions left unchecked have the capacity or the capability to destroy human civilization itself. When it comes to how the world will end, some people favor fire, whereas some people favor ice. Here, fire is linked with the word desire, and ice is linked with the emotion of hatred. The poem Fire and Ice discusses the destructive features of human emotions of desire and hatred. The poet knows that both the emotions are strong enough to end the world, to end the human race. Thus, this short poem is all about the question of how the world will come to an end, either by fire or by ice. Either the world would burn to death or freeze to death. Finally, the poet concludes by saying that either of the options would achieve its purpose sufficiently well. So in this poem, we see that it is all about how the human emotions of desire and hatred, if uncontrolled and unchecked, can even destroy or end the human world. Students, now let us try to look at the language of the poem. Let us try to see what are the literary devices that are used in this poem. Now, as far as the first two lines in the poem are concerned, kindly read them once again. Some say the world will end in fire. Line 2 again. Some say in ice. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. So there is a repetition of similar grammatical structure. Some say. The expression some say is, repeated in both the lines. Both the lines begin with similar expressions, similar grammatical structures. This kind of poetic device is known as parallelism in poetry. So parallelism can be defined as a figure of speech in which there is a repetition of a word or repetition of a phrase or similar grammatical structure, in order to create some effect, maybe for emphasizing a particular concept, or maybe for emphasizing the contrast between two ideas. Here the contrast is shown between two natural elements, contrasting elements, natural elements, fire and ice. So this kind of device is known as parallelism. Now look at line number 4. Let us try to read this line once again. I hold with those who favor fire. Do you see that there is a repetition of a sound here? Favor fire, favor fire. Yes? So there is a repetition of the consonant sound fa, favor fire. So such kind of repetition of sounds in a line of poetry is known as alliteration. So students, do keep in mind that the poetic device or the sound device, alliteration, is used in this poem. Now let us try to understand the rhyme pattern or the rhyme scheme in this poem. Now, in order to understand the rhyme pattern, let us try to read the words, the end words of each line. So line number 1 ends with the word fire. The next line, ice. The next line, desire. Line 4, fire. Line 5, twice. I'm just reading out the last word of each line. Line 6, hate. 7, eyes. 8, great. And the last line, suffice. So when you look at these words, you can understand that actually the poem Fire and Ice has got 3 sets of interwoven rhymes in it. Ire, eyes, 8. Yeah? Ire, eyes, 8. As far as ire is concerned, we have words like fire, desire. As far as eyes is concerned, we have words like eyes, twice, suffice. And as far as 8 is concerned, we have words like hate, great. So there are 3 sets of interwoven rhymes. So if we mark them as A, B and C, then we get a rhyme pattern or a rhyme scheme like A, B, C and B, C, B. I repeat, A, B, C, B, C, B. That's the rhyme pattern in the poem Fire and Ice. So students, the poem Fire and Ice is not just a rhyming poem, but it has also got a very strong metrical base in it. The poem varies between 2 meter lengths, and they are iambic tetrameter and iambic diameter. Now, what's the meaning of iambic tetrameter and iambic diameter? In a line of poetry, if there are 4 iambic feet, then we say that the line is an iambic tetrameter. And if it is written in 2 iambic feet, then we say that it is iambic diameter. So the entire poem varies between these 2 meter lengths, iambic tetrameter, iambic diameter. And keep in mind that the iambic meter or the iambic foot, here what happens is that the first syllable is unstressed and the second syllable is stressed. I repeat, the first syllable is unstressed and the second syllable is stressed. So as far as iambic tetrameter is concerned, in the line of poetry we will have the structure like unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. That is 4 iambic feet. Similarly, as far as iambic diameter is concerned, you will have 2 iambic feet, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. So for instance, line number 4, I hold with those who favor fire. I repeat, I hold with those who favor fire. Unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. I hold with those who favor fire. That is in iambic tetrameter. For instance, line number 9, the last line. And would suffice, and would suffice, and would suffice. Unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. Iambic diameter. So the entire poem varies between 2 meter lengths, iambic tetrameter and iambic diameter. So the poem is not just a rhyming poem, but it also is a poem which has got a strong metrical base in it, a nice rhythmic pattern in it. So students, I hope this audio lecture would help you to some extent in understanding the theme as well as the language of the poem Fire and Ice, written by Robert Frost. Hope to come up with more such lectures. Thanks for listening.